Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me, because today we are diving into an incredible piece of biblical text. We're going to explore something called Psalm 51, and this was written by a seriously famous guy you might have heard of, King David. So let's jump right in and discover what this powerful song can actually teach us about how to say we are truly, genuinely sorry.
So tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever made a really big mistake? Maybe you broke something valuable, or you said something super hurtful to a friend, and you just get that awful, heavy, sinking feeling right in the pit of your stomach because you have absolutely no idea how to fix it? Well, guess what? You are definitely not alone. Even famous, incredibly powerful kings mess up sometimes. And honestly, that is exactly where our biblical text begins today.
All right, part 1, a king's big mistake.
So here's the backstory. King David was usually a really great king, right? But he made a massive mistake involving a woman named Bathsheba. It was this huge secret that he desperately tried to hide. Well, that is, until a really brave prophet named Nathan came right up to him and confronted him about what he had done. David was caught. But you know what's interesting? When he was confronted, he didn't make a bunch of excuses. The biblical text actually says he prayed, "My sin is always before me." David felt terrible, crushing guilt. He literally couldn't stop thinking about the wrong he had done. And more importantly, he realized that he had sinned against him and done evil right in his sight. He knew for sure he couldn't just brush this under the rug.
Moving right along to section 2, asking him for mercy.
So what do you even do when you feel that kind of awful guilt? Well, David decides the only way to handle it is by going straight to him for help. He doesn't rely on being a tough, powerful king. Instead, he relies completely on his unfailing love and his great compassion. The biblical text gives us these absolutely beautiful words. David says, "Blot out my transgressions, wash away all my iniquity." Basically, David is asking him for a totally clean slate. Imagine drawing a huge, messy scribble on a whiteboard with a marker and then asking for an eraser to wipe it completely away so the board looks brand new. That is exactly what David is asking him to do with his mistakes.
Now, David uses some pretty big vocabulary words here, so let's break them down really quick. A transgression basically means stepping over a line that he drew for our own safety. Think of it like seeing a giant "do not enter" sign and just walking right past it anyway. And iniquity? Well, that simply means doing wrong. By using these words, David is fully admitting that he crossed his boundaries and broke the rules. No excuses.
And you know, this perfectly illustrates a practical step-by-step guide on how we can say we are truly sorry to him. First step, admit the mistake. Just own it. Don't try to hide it. Second, ask him for forgiveness. And third, ask him for a pure heart. See, David doesn't just want to get out of trouble. He actually wants his help to completely change his heart so he won't go and make the exact same mistake again.
Which brings us to section 3, washing the heart clean. David uses some seriously amazing visual contrasts in the biblical text to describe exactly how he forgives us. Guys, it's not just a little dusting off. We're talking about a deep clean. David prays, "Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow." Really picture that in your mind for a second. Whiter than snow. That is such a beautiful promise. It means no matter how dirty or messy our mistakes make us feel on the inside, he has the total power to wash us completely clean until we sparkle like fresh, bright, new snow.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, what in the world is hyssop? Well, back in David's time, hyssop was this leafy plant that they used sort of like a special paintbrush for ceremonial cleaning. So when David asks to be cleansed with hyssop, you can kind of picture him gently brushing away all that bad stuff, making everything fresh and perfectly new again.
And when he cleanses us, the results are honestly amazing. David asks for joy and gladness. He even says, "Let the bones you have crushed rejoice." Now, obviously, his bones weren't literally broken, but he felt so incredibly bad inside that it physically hurt him. So he asks for a pure heart and a steadfast spirit, which really just means a spirit that stays super strong and refuses to give up. He is begging him to restore the joy of salvation.
And the coolest part, once David experiences this amazing, freeing forgiveness, he doesn't want to just keep it a secret. The biblical text says he prays that he will not take his Holy Spirit from him. Instead, David asks for a willing spirit to sustain him, also that he can go and teach transgressors his ways. He wants to show other kids, adults, literally anyone who makes mistakes, how they can turn right back to him too.
And that leads us to our final part, section 4, what he really wants.
All right, get ready because we are going to uncover a pretty big surprise in the biblical text about what he actually desires from us when we mess up. It might not be what you'd expect at all. Back in David's day, when people messed up, they usually brought burnt offerings or fancy sacrifices, like giving really expensive gifts, just to say sorry. But David says, "You do not delight in sacrifice, or I would bring it." Instead, the sacrifice he actually wants from us is a broken and contrite heart.
So the absolutely crucial word here is contrite. Having a broken and contrite heart simply means you are truly, honestly sorry from the inside out. You aren't just saying the word sorry because you got caught doing something bad. Your heart actually hurts because you know you did wrong. And the most amazing news from the biblical text is that he will never, ever despise or turn away a person who comes to him feeling exactly this way.
In this final part of the prayer, David asks him to prosper Zion and build the walls of Jerusalem. What this really means is that once our hearts are truly sorry and he steps in to make them right, well, then we can do really good things again. Once our hearts are completely clean, he absolutely delights in our righteous actions and our good choices. It all starts from the inside and works its way out.
So we're going to wrap up our explainer today with a really important question for you to just think quietly about. What is one thing you need to talk to him about today, using David's honest prayer as your guide? Remember, you don't need any fancy words, and you definitely don't need expensive gifts. You just need to come to him honestly, admit your mistake, and ask him for that whiter-than-snow clean heart. He is always, always ready to listen. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredible biblical text today, and I'll catch you guys next time.